Well, they say that opposites attract. We go from an icebreaker to an ending speech. Jeff Chilson is not only our club president, but he is also on the verge of completing his Advanced Communicator Bronze. Now this is past the 10-step communicator initial manual, and now moving on. And I think you'll find that as you move on, you gather many, many skills, speaking skills, that Jeff hopefully will be able to entertain us with today. Out of the Advanced Communication Series, Speaking to Inform, Jeff is using project number 3, entitled The Demonstration. He has an incredible love for outdoor sports, specifically kayaking. In his speech, he is going to give a demonstration on the proper techniques of paddling. Okay. Timer, please display the green card at 5 minutes, yellow at 6, red at 7, and welcome Jeff Chilson to the podium.
Kayaking has become one of the most popular sports recently, and especially in a state like Michigan, you can certainly see why. A kayak is versatile. It can take on swift streams, quiet inland lakes, and even some of the big waves out of the Great Lakes. Now some people, when they see a kayak, they always think of those extreme videos that they've seen, where the guys are kind of strapped into the craft and they're rolling all around. And so from that aspect, they have a little bit of fear of kayaking. Those fears are kind of unfounded. I really find kayaking to be very relaxing. The crafts are very comfortable to sit in. They actually give you a little bit of back support. And because your center of gravity is lower, and the way that they've designed kayaks, they're very stable. And since I started kayaking, I actually started to prefer it much over canoeing. Now the difference between what makes a good tour out in the kayak and what makes it perhaps a rougher day is simply developing some good technique. And I'd like to demonstrate some of the basics, the fundamentals, so that if you are thinking about, well, I really wish I'd get off this beach and go do something with a little bit of adventure associated with it, or you want to spice up that camping trip, there are plenty of tours out there available. But having some fundamentals will really make the difference. The fundamentals all revolve around, my friend here, kayak paddle. Now first of all, you want to make sure you've selected the right paddle. And they have a rule of thumb as far as describing how long it should be, and it's about as high as you can reach, roughly speaking. Usually they say you can actually put your fingers around it. But it's going to be a little bit of variance in there. Sometimes if your craft is a little wider, you're going to want something that's a little longer so you can reach around the edges of it. If your craft is narrower, you can use something shorter and give you a little bit more power. Now another thing you have is when you take out your paddle, you have a choice. And you see on this one right now, I have this in what they call the feathered position. It's offset. You see the blades are perpendicular almost to each other. Now an expert kayaker will use this and have it set up as such because they want it to be able to use some additional aerodynamics. So you see as I have this part of the blade in the water, it's flat. I'm getting the most power that way. I'm pushing flat against the water. Whereas the other side is going to slice through the wind. You're going to get a little bit of aerodynamics from that. Now, as I mentioned, the expert kayaker kind of uses that technique for a little bit of extra efficiency. But even those experts are going to guess they only get about 1% efficiency. So for a novice or an intermediate, it's probably not of value to set it up that way. And it's of more value just to set it up in the standard straight across, so that the blades are parallel to each other. Unless you're going into the wind, that's kind of one typical area where you might want to change it. But the other reason why you probably want to stick with keeping the blades parallel is that if you have them in an offset position, you're going to have to rotate your hands and your wrists a little bit with each stroke. And as you do that, you can see I'm torquing my wrists quite a bit. You can actually develop some sort of overuse injuries here in your wrists. So for the novice intermediate, Go with the standard setup. Keeps it very simple, requires the least amount of work to get started. The next part is developing a good, smooth stroke. The goal here is to be as efficient as possible, so using the least amount of energy. And as you think through what you might be doing in a tour, some of these tours might go 5 miles or a couple hours. You think, wow, 5 miles on the water, that's really far. But a good, efficient stroke, you do it well, even if you do it relatively poorly, is still going to move you 10 to 15 feet each time one of the blades touches the water. And if you just coast a little bit between, you can even get further with each stroke. Now, I'm not going to break down the stroke into absolute minute detail, but I really want to highlight 3 key parts. I'm going to break it down as far as what they call each piece, but I'm going to highlight 3 key pieces of it, so that as you're out there, you can think about those pieces of the fundamentals. The first part of the stroke they call the catch. And that is where the blade is going to catch the water. Simply just enters into the water. And the catch, what you really want to see though, is that you want to see your body is rotating along with the paddle, so you're using more than just your arms. If you're going to go out there and paddle with your arms, it's going to be a long day. But if you rotate your upper body, you're going to use all those strong muscles, the muscles in your core, your stomach, your back, but more particularly your torso and your shoulders, your large, strong muscles. So it makes it much easier to power through the water. So as I go to the catch, you can see my shoulders already turning in towards the water. The next part of the strokes, they call it the power. And at this point, you can see my blade is pushing the most amount of water that it effectively can as I come through. You want to keep that blade as flat as possible to the water as long as you can. I'm going to push the most amount of water, get the most forward push on my craft. The next part they call the exit. That's where the blade comes out of the water, of course. Now you can see as it comes back here towards my hip, I'll turn this way at this point, as it comes here towards my hip, that it's starting to lose that flat push against the water. So I'm starting to lose some of my efficiency. So you want to exit roughly right around where your hip is. The next part they call the recovery, and that's where you're setting up for the stroke on the other side. And once again, for the benefit of folks more over here, you'll be able to see that I'm going to be doing the catch. I'm rotating my body a little bit, particularly my shoulders pointing over towards where the blade enters in. And you see I'm keeping the paddle flat to the water as long as possible. Where I start to lose power, I'm just going to exit, come up, and I'm going to set up for the stroke on the other side. One other thing to consider as you use your paddle in your kayaking is how high your hands are going to be. For a typical day out at the lake, you're going to keep your hands a little bit lower. That's going to give you a nice even stroke on both sides. And it's going to allow you to maintain that same stroke for a long period of time. But if for some reason you want to sprint faster, get more power, you can actually raise your hands higher. You can see I'm going to get more length, more power. I'm going to use more of those core muscles with each push, which now can sustain that kind of a push for an extended period of time. And those are the basics of using the kayak paddle. There are some great tours out there to take advantage of. Pictured rocks along all the shores of Lake Michigan, the Lake Chanel Islands, inland lakes. Even your favorite canoe outfitters have wonderful tours on rivers. So I encourage you to get out there and give it a try. Mr. Chilson.
Thank you, Jeff.